joining. Good evening, everybody. I hope we all had a wonderful week. Welcome to this webinar. Please let us know where you're joining in from. Welcome from all over the world. I am here in Lagos, Nigeria. Please, my name is Winifred, and I am the marketing lead at BAFAI. So please let us know in the chat where you're joining in from. We are very pleased to have you here with us. Thank you, Mariam from Kano, Nigeria. Thank you for joining. Thank you. As you join, please let us know where you're joining in from. We are very excited to have you here, where we are talking about AI for entrepreneurs, working smarter, not harder. So thank you all for joining. Thank you. I do not want to butcher your name, from Kigali, Rwanda. Dr. Ray Charles from Maryland, USA. Wow, we have people indeed from all over the world. Thank you all for joining. So as you join, please tell us where you're joining in from. You're all welcome to this webinar titled AI for Entrepreneurs. So we hear about AI for individuals, for employees, but now we are talking about AI for the businesses. Ruth from Ekiti, Nigeria, Nnamdi from Lagos, Nigeria. Nigeria is really well represented in different parts of the state. I also want to see other parts from Rwanda, other parts from US. Welcome, everyone. So it's just a little housekeeping. Please kindly remain muted, and you can put on your camera if possible. We'd love to see your wonderful faces, so please put on your camera if you can. And as the event progresses, by all means, share your questions, your thoughts in the chat. We will be very eager and happy to read that here today for this webinar titled AI for Entrepreneurs. I keep saying it because I think this is a very, very timely, because it's a very timely topic, because as people, we are all in one way entrepreneurs in one form or another. So this topic is really a timely one, and I'll encourage all of us to come here with our pens and with our papers. And I mean, another thing is, if you're logged into events, you already know the importance, the value of AI and what it means to this new world. So I would say that BAFAI is really a great place, and where we share practical ideas and practical thoughts into the way AI is executed in this evolving world that we find ourselves in. So we also share AI news updates at the end of the week. So it's really a great place for you to know or to learn more about AI, whether you're just beginning or whether you are a practitioner. So I really encourage all of us to go to our socials, follow BAFAI, ensure that you are that you have your notifications tuned in, so that you can be the first to receive whatever BAFAI puts out. So yeah, my colleague has put it in the group, in the chat rather, so you can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you want to follow us on. So by all means, go and do that. So more people are joining. Norman from Baltimore, Maryland, that's the USA, I believe, as well. You're all welcome. So you're welcome to this wonderful webinar with a very timely topic, AI for entrepreneurs. And to lead us into this, my name, like I said, is Winifred. I'm the marketing lead for Bloom Academy for Artificial Intelligence. And today we have our host, and we also have the speaker. So I'm going to move on to introducing our host for today. Our host is Dr. Lola Olukuewu. And I'll say at the heart of BAFA is a simple but ambitious belief that people across the global south should have the skills and they should have the opportunities to participate meaningfully in the age of AI. And that's a vision that is completely championed by our founder and chief AI officer, Dr. Olukuewu. So Dr. Lola is an AI entrepreneur. She's an investor. She's an international speaker. So one thing I would like us to do while we are here is please react. We need to know how you are how the team is entering you as we are saying all these things. So I am introducing the founder, the reason we are all here, Dr. Lola. So please react with your favorite emojis. Please react to your favorite emojis. Thank you, David. So we are introducing the person that made it possible for all of us to be here, for all of us to stay here. So, like I said, she's an AI entrepreneur, she's an investor, she's speaker whose leadership journey party. If I want to say everything today, we will not leave here. But because we are all here for a for a purpose, I will just move on and say that she's not just the chief. She's not just the founder of BAFAI. She's also the CEO. He's also the CEO of Alvira, co-founder of Alvira Technologies, which are the creators of Audible, an AI-powered call center solution. And she's the founder and CEO of Topaz Hub, that's been recognized as one of Africa's most eco-friendly technology hubs. So, right, I would say her work really sits at the intersection of AI safety, governance, education. She's just really an all-around powerhouse, and it's because of her that we have BAFAI today. It's because of her that I'm even here talking to you, that we are all here gathered together to learn about how AI can be used by business owners as well as in our individual lives. So I would say that without much ado, I'll say, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the founder and the chief AI officer of BAFAI, Dr. Lola Olukuewu. By all means, please let everywhere be high with all the emojis. Let the emojis cover everywhere as we welcome Dr. Lola to the stage.
Thank you very much, Winifred. Thank you so much. I'll always be shy with things like this. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's an awesome privilege to be here. I really appreciate everyone who has taken the time to join. I see one of us here who's strapped on a seatbelt, meaning that she's actually on the road and she just found it very necessary to still join us. Thank you for also still, if you're the one driving, thank you for keeping your eyes on the road. You look really pretty. Thank you, everyone. I see some of our learners. I see some of the names. I see some of us joining from the USA and all over Africa. And as a matter of fact, some have actually been waiting like 15 minutes to the time, just waiting in the chat room, waiting for the webinar to start. I thank you all. It's really an amazing privilege to be gathering everyone this day, to celebrate one another, the journey so far, and then to, share tips, tricks, and hacks on how to use AI as entrepreneurs. Whether you work in a company or you own your own company, of which you are also an employee of your own company, whatever the case is, we all need artificial intelligence at some point, to thrive at this point. We need it for many reasons. And I have something that I'm going to be reading from here. But before then, I want to thank all my team members that are here. Every member of BAFA, if you're here, I want to see your emoji just so that everyone sees that I'm not alone. I'm, working with an awesome team that have been very supportive of the vision. Winifred has shared some of the reasons we exist, but I think it's important before I go on into my keynote speech to just share why we are here as BAFAI. Bloom Academy for AI, that's BAFAI, is an AI education platform that was designed to bridge the widening skills and competence gaps we have identified in the global market space, especially in the global south. We discovered that because we are usually, the consumers in the global south of most of the technology and products and services, from the more advanced countries in the world, that we were also, and we are also still the ones at the receiving end of everything that wants to be disruptive, usually on the negative side as well. we've had tons and tons of people lose their their jobs because AI is now doing the routine tasks that most people in the global south, or a good number of people in the global south, do. We have a lot of virtual assistants losing their jobs. We have a whole lot of people who do operational work lose their jobs. Of course, there would always be jobs that can never be replaced by AI, always and forever, right? But those jobs that could easily be replaced by AI, we are having to experience large, attrition rates in terms of people losing their jobs. So this was one of the things we discovered that got me really concerned. And then I became compassionate about this situation and decided to do something about it. And that's how BAFAI was born. So basically, we're here not only to educate people in agentic AI, workflow automation, being an AI task manager and all of that. We're also here to create solutions for people. We're here to help people identify smarter ways of remaining employed, of gaining employment and improving and increasing their revenue and saving their time. So without much ado, I'll go into my keynote speech. It is a pleasure to be here today to speak about a topic that is becoming increasingly important for every entrepreneur, and which is artificial intelligence and the future of work. When we hear AI, many people immediately think about technology, robots, or something that is going to take people's jobs. But for entrepreneurs, I believe we should be asking a different question. How can AI make me build and run my business better? That is the question we should be asking. Because entrepreneurship is demanding. You are constantly trying to manage customers. You're trying to juggle marketing, increase sales, organize your finances, be on top of operations, trying to also generate content. You're trying to do research so that you can expand or grow. You're doing 100 other things. If you are an entrepreneur, I'm sure you will be nodding your head by now. And if you work with entrepreneurs, I'm sure you're also nodding your head, right? You're doing so many other things, and usually you're often with a lean team, a small team, because many of us are small. We fall under the micro and small business scale. You have some in the medium, and then of course you have the large enterprises, which are very, very few when we're looking at it regionally, right? So many of us still fall under micro business or small business. And if you are usually under that, you are one of us, and you're definitely one of those trying to find a way to keep your overheads as little as possible. So now this is where AI can make the real difference for you and you and me. And these are some of the things we want to talk about here today. AI can help us save time. It can help us reduce repetitive work, and it can also help us make better decisions. For example, instead of spending hours researching a market, AI can help you organize information and identify trends. All you need to do is to punch what you need into these modern tools that are available now. The AI tools, you have the Gemini, the ChatGPT, and the Claude and the likes. All you need to do now is to punch in the prompt, as opposed to trying to find a resource to help with that. Okay? And then also, instead of having to start every piece of content from scratch, AI can help you generate ideas and first drafts. In the same vein, instead of manually going through hundreds of customer responses, AI can help you identify common complaints, questions, or patterns with your customers. And for small businesses especially, this is very powerful. AI gives a small team access to capabilities and that previously required more people. So now with AI, you don't need more people. You just need to know how to use the tool, and even know that those tools exist, right? So you now have more time and significantly more resources. But I want to emphasize something here. Using AI is not the same as having an AI strategy, right? So the goal is not to use AI simply because everyone is using it. The real question is, what problem in my business can AI help me solve? Where are we wasting time? What tasks are repetitive in my business that AI can help me knock off? Where are customers experiencing delays? What processes can I automate? Those are the questions entrepreneurs should be asking. And we also have to remember that AI does not replace the entrepreneur. AI can generate information, but we provide the judgment. AI can generate content, but we provide the creativity and the brand voice. AI can help analyze data, but we make the decisions. So the future isn't necessarily about AI replacing entrepreneurs. It is about entrepreneurs who know how to work with AI, becoming more productive than those who don't. And I believe this is particularly important for African entrepreneurs, for people of color, and for people in the global south as a whole. And in fact, because we are seeing that we've got distinguished guests also from even the advanced countries, you can definitely learn a whole lot also from this session today, because a small business in Africa, a small business in the global south is also a small business in the advanced nations. And you can always learn from some of the things we want to share here today. So my advice is simple. Don't try to transform your entire business overnight. Start with one problem. What is that pain point that you have? Can you put pen to paper, identify it, and then try to search online for how to use AI to solve that problem? Identify one task that takes too much time or is unnecessarily repetitive. Find an AI tool that can help, test it, improve it, and then scale what works in your business. Because working smarter doesn't mean doing less, right? It means spending less time on tasks that technology can assist with and more time on the things that require you, the unique you, the one with the ideas, the creativity, and the relationships and the decision. The you that can come to table and not be distracted by all the small routine tasks. So it will help you focus more on what should be what you should be focusing on. And I think with all that we're going to be learning today from Dr. Charles and all of the conversations and questions we're going to be asking, I think we have a very, very interesting session about to be unveiled. Thank you very much for your time, and please enjoy the session.
Thank you so much. Please, I'm sure we can do better with our emojis, because Dr. Lola has just given us a very important insight. I mean, one thing that I'm taking from here is asking the salient question: what problem can AI help me solve? What processes can I automate? And I mean, especially you start with one problem, then you search it, you test it, you improve it, and then you scale it. Like that's really profound. That's very interesting. And we are definitely off to an amazing start. I mean, I'm sure from this, if we all go home, we'd have gotten something out of it. But thankfully, we still have the keynote, the speaker that we specially invited for this webinar to come and even give us some more information, some more insights into what Dr. Lola has started sharing. So to now move further, we will be introducing our guest speaker. And for that to happen, I would still call upon our Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, Dr. Lola, to introduce our guest speaker.
Just confirming you can hear me.
Yes, please.
Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Curtis B. Charles, founder and CEO of FutureLogic AI Consulting Group. Dr. Charles is an MIT and Harvard-trained strategist whose work sits at the intersection of artificial intelligence, education, digital transformation, and national development. Through FutureLogic AI Consulting Group, he works with governments, institutions, and mission-driven organizations to apply AI to real-world challenges, from public sector reform and digital governance to future of work readiness and AI politics. His experience spans both academia and the global technology sector. He previously served as a strategy and change executive consultant at IBM Global Services, leading major digital transformation initiatives across countries including Japan, Korea, the United Kingdom, Taiwan, and the United States. At Microsoft Consulting Services, he worked as a data scientist and solutions architect, helping embed AI across government, defense, and education ecosystems. Dr. Charles has also played a significant role in advancing AI education in the Caribbean community. As Dean and Director of Academic Affairs at the University of the West Indies Five Islands campus, he helped transform a young institution into the Caribbean's first AI integrated university. During his 5-year tenure, enrollment grew from 174, please note, from 174 to more than 1,100 students. And he established the School of Science, Computing, and Artificial Intelligence while helping integrate AI across disciplines, ranging from pharmacy to criminology. His academic foundation is equally extensive, with degrees from MIT, Howard University, Northwestern University, and Morgan State University, alongside advanced executive training at Harvard and MIT in areas including artificial intelligence, big data analytics, and system thinking. What makes Dr. Charles particularly relevant to our conversation today is his commitment to the global South and his belief in the potential of AI to drive inclusive development. His work continues to explore how countries can build the skills, systems, and strategies required to harness AI responsibly and ensure that emerging economies are active participants in shaping the future of this technology. So, as we explore how entrepreneurs can move beyond simply experimenting with AI to using it strategically in their businesses, we couldn't have a more fitting voice in this conversation. Dr. Charles, we're delighted to have you with us. Welcome. Please, everyone, a round of applause for our distinguished guest today. Might I also add that we have the awesome privilege of having Dr. Charles in the tenure that has just passed and in the one that is also, the second year of BAFAI, because we just clocked one in July. It's hard to believe because everyone thinks we've been around forever, right? Because of the impact we're having. But we actually just clocked one on the 1st of July. And it gives me great joy to say that Dr. Charles belongs in our advisory board. And I met Dr. Charles in Geneva, Switzerland last year when we were both in AI for Developing Nations conference, global conference in Geneva. So it's such a privilege to have met him. And then, we got introduced and then we continued on LinkedIn and connected on LinkedIn and then started talking about AI. And from there, he became one of our advisory board members. And we're so pleased and privileged to be having someone this experienced with us today. So without further ado, please, Dr. Charles, you have the floor.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. And as Doug will tell you, and most people who know me, I am very happy to be here today. But I want you for one moment, if you can, just suspend everything that was said about me in my introduction. And I want you to listen very attentively for the next few minutes, because I'm going to tell you who I am. Since I'm dealing with predominantly African audience, you know this story quite well. In when I was growing up, it used to be common entrance, where at the age of 11, the British seemed deemed to give us a high stake test at the age of 11. And if you pass that exam, you go on to high school. And if you fail that exam, you consider doomed to society, and unless your parents have enough money. I just want you to let you know that everything my friend just said there is from someone who failed that exam at 11. You're looking at someone who never went to high school. And I wanted to really start my presentation with that because I think entrepreneurship is in your blood, and entrepreneurship isn't only opening a business, it's the determination to want to move forward. It's the determination to want to transform lives. It's the determination to want to be better. I have to tell you, I'm one of 7 kids. 2 of my brothers on the call, Neville and Dr. Ray and Neville Charles on the call. And we are one of 7 children. And I know what it is to grow up poor. I know what it is to grow up with having one bowl of food feed 9 people on an evening, food that was made possible by my grandmother. And my dad went to the top high school in Trinidad and Tobago, but he chose to have 7 children. And he was a successful fire officer. God bless his soul. He died some years back, and my mom died in January. So it's just us right now, but we had the most awesome parents who believed in everything that we could do. And when you fail that common entrance exam, I could tell you, I remember the day like yesterday when they call out when they over the loudspeaker, they announced everybody who passed. And I remember in my class of like 35, there were probably like 3 people who failed. And I remember that feeling like yesterday when they announced that I failed, and I felt like the earth could have just opened up and swallowed me. Um, so all our experiences define us. But I used to be in an elementary school, and I used to have to cross a canal, and next to the canal was a high school in order to go home. And I am a firm believer in God. I don't know who on the call isn't, but I believe that God has ordered all of my steps. So when I crossed that canal, there was an art studio of Mr. Harris. And Mr. Harris was from St. Kitts, so he used to call me Curtis. He never called me Curtis. He could never pronounce Curtis. He would say Curtis, Curtis. But Mr. Harris took me under his arms from the moment I failed that exam. And I would go by Mr. Harris and I would learn art. And Mr. Harris would always say, Curtis, you need to go to the States and study architecture because art doesn't have any money. And Mr. Harris was my first angel, and he believed in me. And there was nothing I could not have done with Mr. Harris. And I believe in my life there has been always angels. So when my colleague called me, it wasn't difficult to do this. I have a lot of knowledge that I want to be able to pass on. I'm educated to my core. And I believe that everything that happened in our lives happened for a purpose. Had I not failed that exam at 11 and know what failure feels like, and then had the opportunity to earn 4 degrees at major institutions, I would not understand the power of education. And hence, my 4 children, who one just received a doctorate in chemistry, non-organic chemistry, at 27 years old from the Ohio State University. One is a lawyer, and one did her family in pharmacy. I'm not saying that to boast. I'm saying that to say that at the age of 17, I had the opportunity to go to evening classes. And in my 17-year-old frame, I would put a pickaxe on my shoulder and put the tall boots, the rubber boots on my shoulder, and I would walk up the street and I would dig those ditches so that he could run plumbing under the earth. Had I not picked up that pickaxe, had I not dig those ditches, that generation would have never been. so that now my kids could see the power of education, because the Bible says, leave an inheritance to your children and your children's children. My inheritance is education. So I know why I failed, and I embrace failure. As entrepreneurs, we can't be good entrepreneurs unless we fail. We must fail, because that's how we learn. But I wanted to tell you that introduction because everything that you heard before and you're going to hear could be out of context unless you don't know who I am. I was listening to President Obama recently, and he introduced himself. He says, I'm Michelle's husband. And I thought that was interesting, because we all know who he is. But really, without Michelle, he probably would have never been the president he is today. He was at the time, because we need that. We need those angels in our lives. So I had the opportunity to go to evening classes, but in order to pay the evening classes, I had to dig those ditches. And in order to pay for books, I had to paint those lines that divide the streets in two. Some is yellow lines, some are white lines, with cars going on either side in Trinidad. At the age of 17, I paid for those books. And it was a white English woman, one of my other angels, Dr. Joseph, who came to pick me up. I was active in the church youth group, and she came to pick me up on Sunday. And then out of the blue, she said, do you want to go to evening classes? I thought she was crazy, right? Because I was 17 years old. And that was the age at which most Trinidadians had finished high school. You would probably finish high school at 17. But I just believe God has a plan for all of us. Because in 2 years, I had the equivalent to get accepted to the same university my daughter just graduated to, the Ohio State University School of Architecture, University of Miami School of Architecture, Washington State University School of Architecture, and for us, the Mecca, Howard University. And that is why I feel I'm Nigerian, because I've gone to school with so many Nigerians at Howard University that I just think that you should call me a citizen. But I have had the pleasure of working with some great Nigerian colleagues in architecture at Howard. And I went on to Howard, then I lived my dream. I mean, I was for 2 weeks, I was on cloud 9 at MIT in grad school. But it's what got me there. What got me there? I have always been socially conscious in solving problems through technology. So AI is just one. So if you look at my career, it has always been about problem solving. AI is just another tool. When I grew up in Trinidad, farmers would plant in the sunny season. They still do the foolishness. Plant in the sunny season and reap in the rainy season. Because of bad drainage, the floods wipe out the crops, the government compensate the farmers, and they raise the prices. I thought that was foolishness. And I remember talking to my dad, and my dad said, well, why don't you just put the covering over the entire land? I said, well, Dad, you just can't do that. But that was my dad at that point in time. So I left Trinidad and I went to Japan that summer. And as I came on the aircraft, it said Science and Technology Expo Tsukuba, Japan. I went to Japan with $15. Couldn't pay for me to get to Tsukuba where we were going. It was a group of us, another, I think it was a Nigerian professor who led us to Japan, Nigeria or Ghana. And we went to Japan, and I passed around a hat. I literally passed around a hat to get the money to go to the conference, because that's not why we were there. We were there to study architecture. But something jumped inside of me, and the first pavilion I went to was called the Home Pavilion. There were 10,000 tomatoes growing in nutrient solution, and plants will grow forever if they have fertile soil and if they have sunlight. And the sunlight was being piped in via fiber optics. The Japanese call it the Himawari system. And fiber optics will take light wherever you can take it, because it's reflective to any depth, whether it's underwater, whether it's in space, or whether it's at sea. And I was just like blown away when I saw this. And I came back and I contacted the company. It's called Lafayette Engineering. Lafayette Engineering said, look, if we're going to be on the West Coast the next year, we want you to come and show us your research. And if it's important, we're gonna sponsor it. Signed a contract for 20,000. Came back with 20,000. They said if you wanted any further funding, you have to come to Japan in 1988. 1988 for most Black Americans, or most people who are Black, is very, very important, because in 1988, President Nagasaki, who was the president of Japan, called all African Americans lazy. And all my colleagues at Howard thought that I should have been offensive about that, but none of them was putting up money for me to go to MIT. So I went to Japan. Was the amazing second trip to Japan. Amazing point in my life to be working with major researchers on this technology that could take my career to the next level. Every job I have gotten since 1988. I explained what I just explained about the screen. And there was nothing else anybody else wanted to ask. It was about solving problem. And the problem I wanted to solve wasn't a Trinidad problem. I wanted to solve food production in a controlled environment on equatorial climates. What are on equatorial climates? Some of our poorest nations in the world. And I'll never forget my advisor called together a group of institute professors from MIT, and we were brainstorming about this. And this guy, Backhouse, if you know the name Backhouse, you could look it up, was the last president of Harvard. But President Backhouse was an institute professor at MIT at that time. And as I was about to get up, he asked me what I thought was one of the most unfair questions in my life. He said, "Do you want to save mankind or do you want to make money?" I mean, I'm being idealistic. I'm at MIT. I want to save mankind. He said, "Wrong answer. Because you cannot save these people you're trying to save unless you could make money out of the product." And that has transformed my life. In 1988, Dr. Key Murray, which was the developer of this technology, father was on the cover of Forbes magazine as the richest man in the world. So this was the person I was working for who I didn't know. I could go on with my career. What I wanted to do in the introduction is to show you it doesn't matter where you start as an entrepreneur. It doesn't matter where you are. All you need to do is to have faith in God, and you need to basically have the gumption. I don't know what you call it in Nigeria, but Jamaicans call it something else, but this is a kid show. So we wouldn't say that. So you had to have the guts to want to be successful. And that has taken me through my career in corporate, and that has taken through my career in academia. In academia, I thought it was my duty that if the Lord had such a sense of humor to make me be educated, then I need to be a university president. And you're looking at a young man who failed at common entrance at 11, who went on to MIT, Northwestern University, Howard University, or Morgan State University, and became a president of a university, and went on to help build the first AI campus in the Caribbean, and the first School of Science, Computing, and Artificial Intelligence. And I could go on with a lot of firsts, but what I want to show you is that none of us do this alone. There are angels everywhere that we are. So what I wanted to do today was to take all that knowledge that has been transferred onto me and that I have learned, and I wanted to introduce you to how I think AI should be used. I wanted to particularly, because I didn't want you to have a false sense of, well, he's going to come and talk about how great ChatGPT is. That's I mean, anybody knows that. My point, as I was telling my colleagues, my point is that I want, as we go through this, you take notes and we ask questions. I'm going to do an intro video. It's about 4 minutes, and then I'm going to open the floor for questions and answers, and we're going to talk about this. Because I've been to too many forums like this where, the speaker talk a long talk, and then they're like 5 minutes. So I want to make sure that even if we don't get your questions, we can at least answer it afterwards. But I'm going to give you the majority of my time for question and answers. But I'm going to introduce this with how I think you should be thinking about AI, not now, but for the next 20 years. I want you to be restless about my story. And I want you as an entrepreneur that every time you feel discouraged, every time a door is closed, because they're going to be closed, there's a door around the corner that's going to be open. You just have to have the patience and persistence to go through that door. It's going to be open. But every time you feel discouraged, understand that there was a little boy at the age of 11 who failed common entrance, who people laughed at, who dig ditches in order to pay for evening classes, whose brother on the phone, my brother Neville is younger than I, but I have to tell you, God had a sense of humor, because in that first session, when I went to those evening classes, they didn't just put me in mathematics, they put me in additional mathematics. I thought that God was crazy. Now, I didn't know hoot about math, but I had a ram in the bush. And my brother was a ram in the bush. Nights upon nights, when we had a house where you could see the lights if you're in the last room. We would put a wet towel and block it so my parents would think that we're sleeping. And my brother and myself would just hit the books. We just hit the books. And that's how I am. Again, my brother Tony is he and myself went to Howard together. He did chemical, I did architecture. We were one building apart. We don't do this alone. So I have to tell you, when I met my colleague in Geneva a couple of years ago, just was a kindred spirit that just jumped. Right. I mean, look, I'm going to be transparent with you. I would love to live in Nigeria too. So this is not a free presentation. I'm telling you, I would love to visit or be in Nigeria. I'm just messing with you. But there was a kindred spirit. I mean, there were 500 of us there, 500 plus. But we were able to, at the reception, to just talk about what we're doing and then continue talking. And then I thought that, look, if you're in education, I'm going to be there. I told her as well that, my company, FutureLogic, is going to be doing training as well at some level. But but what I wanted to do was to introduce you to a way of thinking. I want to turn your brain around. And I want you, wherever you sit as an entrepreneur, I want you to think about the next presentation, take notes, ask questions. If you leave this presentation today the same way you came in, I have failed. If you leave this presentation transformed in your thinking and the renewing of your mind, then we would have all been successful. This also introduces a platform that we are building that going to be launched very soon. And I want you to understand, like I was telling my colleague, this also was solving a problem. I am great at conceptualizing as an architect. I could design anything. I'm great at designing it. But I'm lousy at presenting the compliance information, and the proposal need to be 10 points, and the margin need to be half an inch. So I found myself in a number of situations where I would have had a great proposal, but I didn't have enough time to do the compliance stuff. I wanted to solve that problem. And this that you're going to see solve that problem. So if I could share my screen, I would like to start. And after this presentation, we could have a great conversation for as long as they will allow us to do so.
Typical AI speeds up existing work. A relationship operating system identifies shifts in a network before they become visible. Most entrepreneurs are forced to manually juggle hundreds of different relationships. They are trying to keep track of 500 distinct people, ranging from customers and prospects to suppliers and referral partners, without losing sight of which connections are fading and which are growing. The standard solution is a mix of spreadsheets, static CRMs, and sheer mental effort. This relies on the entrepreneur to remember every detail and spot every trend, a process that usually leads to cognitive overload. AI 1.0 arrived as a tool for creation. It handles the blank page problem, writing follow-up emails or drafting social posts. It makes the act of communication faster, but the underlying strategy remains unchanged. Then came AI 2.0, which focused on automation. These tools summarize meetings and prepare proposals based on your existing workflows. They take over the doing, yet they still wait for the human to tell them exactly what needs to be done. These two generations accelerate yesterday's habits. They help you execute tasks more quickly, but they do nothing to help you see the changing structure of your network or identify where your attention is actually needed. We are now moving into AI 3.0, the era of anticipation. At this stage, software transitions from a reactive tool to a proactive partner that identifies emerging opportunities before a human would recognize them. Instead of you telling the AI to write an email to a contact, the system observes the data and asks you a question. It asks, why this person? Why today? It points out a change in the relationship state that requires a decision. This shift is the core of the Relationship Operating System, or ROS. It is designed to redesign how a business senses and acts upon its network data. This morning intelligence report demonstrates the difference. The system monitors hundreds of active relationships and flags 12 meaningful state changes. It isolates 3 specific retention risks and 1 strategic partnership, then recommends your highest leverage action for the day, reconnecting with Maria. This shift changes the entrepreneur's daily experience. The system identifies the most important areas of focus, clarifying the decision space so the entrepreneur can apply their judgment where it matters most. To understand how these insights are generated, we have to look at the intelligence architecture beneath the dashboard. This framework is called AIP. In the first phase, the system senses raw business signals across the enterprise. It scans these data points to establish their precise provenance, ensuring that every piece of information the system uses is verified and accurate. The system then discovers how these signals relate to one another. By identifying patterns in how nodes cluster together, the architecture estimates which new business conditions are forming, such as a customer drifting away or a new referral source emerging. Finally, the system filters out the noise to protect the human decision boundary. It translates complex data clusters into a single recommended action, presenting a clear path forward within a specific decision window. There is a clear division of labor here. APIP functions as the intelligence architecture that senses and learns from data, while ROS provides the operating experience that allows the human to maintain authority over every decision. This architecture applies to any industry built on connection. A realtor can use it to track the shifting needs of hundreds of buyers, sellers, and lenders simultaneously. A physician can use it to monitor evolving patient needs and referral patterns, ensuring that no changing health circumstance goes unnoticed. Even a small retailer can use it to sense subtle changes in purchasing behavior, allowing them to anticipate what their local customers will need next. These examples reveal a universal truth. Every enterprise is a network of relationships changing state over time. The goal of AI is to help the business sense those changes. This is why an ROS is different from a CRM. A CRM is a static record of the past, a filing cabinet for data. A relationship operating system is a dynamic web that reasons across the changing structure of your business in real time. Stop asking how AI can do your work. Ask what happens when intelligence is built into how your business operates.
All right. So one of the things I told my colleagues is that I'm also going to give you some tools that you could walk away with. And this is one of the tools. I don't want to give you it now because everybody's going to leave the presentation and they're going to start searching for the tool. But the tool that created this presentation is an incredible tool. So I want to leave this up here for the discussion that we're going to have. But I want to make sure that you are empowered as well, not only with the information, but how these presentation tools could expand, these new AI presentation tools could expand you. So a couple of things I want you to get out from this presentation that I wouldn't ask you to a show of hands, but if you operate in an AI level 1 or AI 2, you're behind your competition, right? If you're in AI 1, which is you ask and you get a question, or AI 2, where you like ChatGPT, it's like a blog or it's like a bot, and that's all you're doing. Then you in way behind, and this and the thing that's going to help you in this discussion is AI level 3, right, which is anticipatory. Right. And when you think about anticipatory and you think about a business, right, as a small business, as a one-person business, or two-person business, it's the end factor. What we talk about is convergent forces. So we talk about IFOD a little bit in the conference we had, but we have continued to have weekly sessions with IFOD, and I have talked a lot about, I've been on like 5 panels for the year with IFOD, and it's whether AI is going to take over humanity, or whether the what do you call it, the taxing of society is going to be something that I think we have had like 5 or 6 different topics, but the constant in my responses has always been convergent forces. What are the convergent forces that we are not seeing? If you think about my point in terms of an iceberg. On an iceberg, everything that's above the iceberg is very visible to us. But the real trouble is happening underneath, or the real opportunity is happening underneath. And as an entrepreneur, anticipatory intelligence or anticipatory thinking or anticipatory enterprises, like I know will say, anticipatory enterprise is about understanding what is under the iceberg, converging, what are those forces that's going to impact your business, and could you determine that before? I wrote a book in January, and it's called Anticipatory Enterprises, 0 Day. Governing before the crisis appears, right? And your job as an entrepreneur is to not only govern before the crisis appears, but if you could anticipate and understand those convergent forces, then you could make preemptive decisions. It's like terrorism, right? If you think about terrorism, if I know that I'm hunting for X, Y, and Z, and I could figure out the patterns based on the convergent activities that they have been involved in, then I could anticipate that and attack or at least plot the foil of any bad incidents that's going to happen. So as an entrepreneur, your job is to be anticipatory. So everything that you need to learn about, you need to learn about how do I become anticipatory from where I am. The next tool before I open it out for questions that I want you to think about is you have to be you have to be willing to shift, right? And I'm not saying shift for the reason of shifting, but you have to be able to be resilient. Don't say that, okay, I went to school and I studied business, so I should be a business entrepreneur. Or I went to college and I studied architecture, or I need to be an architecture entrepreneur. I mean, I did architecture undergraduate at Howard University, and I'm not dissing anybody who have other degrees on the call, but I think architecture is the greatest profession on the face of the earth. Not that you have to practice architecture, but it teaches you how to solve problems. Before I come to you, if you hire me to design a building or design a home, I can't just start designing. I have to understand how you entertain. Do you like to sleep next to the living room? Do you want to sleep and see the skies? Do you want to come out of your living room and see a nice view? Do you want your house close to your neighbor? Is there a pond in front that you want to go fishing? Did they do geological testing on your property? I have to do all that research. And then we do what is called design development. So I take all that convergent information. I want you to see how it was 1980, but all those convergent information then determine the design of your building. And most architects never live in the building. They design it and they move on. So what I want you to see with my career is that the problems and the methodologies haven't changed. Only the technologies have changed. So I want you to think about the convergent forces that's around you. And I want you to think about not solving simple problems, but how does your preparation where you are or the additional training you get in here how could that prepare you for the wicked challenges? The prize is not really going to go to those who solve small problems. We had to look at our society, we had to look at our surrounding and says, how do we solve these wicked challenges? I could tell you that the platform that you just looked at, that I introduced, this platform was really thought about in terms of funding, right? There are funding available for development of your companies. It's like $15 billion across the globe. Most entrepreneurs never even touch a fraction of that. What we have designed is something that will allow you not only to go in and search based, not just blindly search, but search based on your company, your capabilities, and then produce a proposal in days instead of months, right? Now, that's solving a problem. I sat down, I think about it, and we solve that problem. Not very different than solving the design of a problem. What I want you to do is to reflect on your own career and your own trajectory path and the skills and capabilities you have and figure out what problem you could solve. That I would love it to be to help mankind and womankind, but that's your problem. You need to decide what you want to solve. But I think whenever we solve social problems, we solve other major problems as well that could govern us. So I'm going to open it out to the floor. We're going to talk a little bit about AI. We're going to talk a little bit about what you saw. I need you to ask any questions there. I specifically asked my colleague that we don't have questions that she asked me or other guests asked me. I want you to ask the questions. So there's nothing that's bad from asking questions. So I can't see the screen, so the floor is open.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm speechless. Before to just ask again, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Put every question that you have in the chat. I mean, who can agree that that Dr. Charles has definitely flipped the way that we think about AI. I can freely admit that I hadn't heard of the era of anticipation before today. So I am definitely completely enriched by just this short presentation that has been given. I mean, AI 1.0 and 2.0. I think it's great. It's really a time of reflection. Like, how have you been using AI? Which era are you in? I know me, I will admit it. I mean, AI 2.0, but I am very sure that after this, with the little nuggets that Dr. Charles has given us, because what he has done right now, he has compressed an experience of over 40 years solving problems, compressed it, like super compressed it into less than 1 hour. And the nugget that he has shared is really, really profound. Is really is it goes beyond what I would say that I've thought about AI. I fancy myself an AI expert, but what he has said I have not heard before. So I'm sure we are still ruminating and thinking about what Dr. Charles has shared with us. Yeah, Dr. La, do you have anything to say while we wait
Yeah,
for more?
I wanted to say you can start with the question. You have a question?
Yes, I
Because if
do
I
have
go
it.
with, I don't want to be the one asking all the questions so that we can give the opportunity. So you, as a moderator, can give us a question while I think they're typing. So
Yes,
you can
yes,
go
sure.
ahead.
So before this, I'd actually come with my own list of questions because I'm both an employee and an entrepreneur, and I had my own questions I wanted to ask. And I think one of the questions I wanted to ask is, if you were advising a business owner who currently only uses AI for things like writing emails or creating content, like, what would you tell them to do next to get real business value from AI? You've mentioned a couple of things, and you also gave us this brief intro. So what would be that, like, maybe one sentence, one core thing that you would just say, move from point A to point B? I think that's one question that I'd like to know.
Great question. I would say, um, don't try to be this AI experts, right? We have a lot of students coming out to college with computer science degrees. We have a lot internationally. You could get folks cheap. I was even listening to something on National Public Radio, which is a radio station. They call it liberal radio station, but however, it's always informative to me. But NPR was talking about the inexpensive creativity that's happening in the West Bank right now, right? With what is happening between Israel and the Palestinians, there are educated people in the West Bank who have to find a livelihood, whose livelihood evaporated within thin air within a short period of time. They are now opening their doors to an international market that they probably never thought about. So they're programmers to do what you need to do. Plus, there's no code programming that you could do online with some of the large language models. So don't worry about it. As if I would say, don't worry about conceptualize what you want. Have the ability to be the architect, because the contractor, and I give this example earlier because one of my philosophy is always architecture before algorithms. If you think about most of where AI is right now, you tell somebody you have a problem, what's the first thing to do? They say, let me build you a model. No. Let me architect the idea so I could know, do I need to dig the ground to build a foundation? And on top of that foundation, I have a slab. And on top of that slab, I need to have columns that supports the roof, that supports the beams, that supports the ceiling. And I need to have walls where the plumbers are going to run. You can't just start building as a contractor. You have to have construction documents. You have to have documents that's designed. So be the architect. I will tell you, understand how to architect the vision that's in your mind. Once you have that and you storyboard it, or you write it out and you type it, you could get a programmer to bring it alive. So become the architect. Understand the tools enough that you could have a clear conversation with the programmer. You don't need to know what Python code is going to tell you what a dazzling letter on the screen is going to be. The programmer can do that. You don't need to. What you need to know is that you need to articulate, like I did, that look, the problem is Dr. Charles is really good at designing proposals, but he's lousy at the compliance stuff. So Dr. Charles needed to have a solution. I just happened to be the person who could do both, right? But you don't have to do that. That's just my lineage. I went to graduate school at a place where AI was sort of like started, right, at MIT. So it's part of our being, even if you're not an AI specialist, it's part of our environment that we breathe. But not everybody do that. But we have people, you have resources online that could do that thing. But to be able to conceptualize, that is the important thing. I remember before when I was in undergraduate school, I had all these ideas in my head, and I used to wish that somebody could just plug wires in my head and just pull it out onto a computer screen and everybody could see it. I don't have to do that anymore. I could conceptualize it. So the greatest gift that you have that you don't know is the ability to conceptualize and crystallize a message that you could get over to your customer. Your customer will never ask you how the algorithms work. Never. They will ask you how you could solve their problem. So could you be a problem solver as an AI company? Could you move them from where they are to elevate them? Could you be a good communicator? Instead of honing your algorithm skills, hone your communication skills so that you could communicate to a large audience what your ideas are. And I love Dr. O. I love Dr. O because Dr. O tells you out front, I'm no AI specialist. She said, but I am curious enough to have found out about it and educate myself about it at every level so that I could build this training institution. That's what you need to do. Be a little Dr. O. I hope I answered the question.
Yes, you have. And I also think you answered the second question that I had, but then you raised another question because the second question I had was around how an entrepreneur can identify which parts of their business are actually worth using AI. But when you mentioned architect the vision you want to bring to life, I think that completely nullifies that question as a whole. But I would say one thing that rose up as you were speaking was many entrepreneurs, I believe many entrepreneurs assume that meaningful AI adoption requires a large budget, it requires technical expertise or sophisticated tools. How much of that is true, and what can a small business realistically start doing today?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question because everyone has that. Mr. Noah. Look, that presentation you saw, it could have been from Microsoft, it could have been from Amazon, it could have been from any one of the major Google, it could have been from any one of the major tech firms. It's an idea that's born out to my need to do something that's extraordinary. And I know it's going to be extraordinary when it's finished, but I have had the luxury of almost 40 years career of solving problems. And I knew in my head what I wanted. I also had the luxury of, in the Caribbean, you have to retire at 65. Very, very silly, because at 65 is when you have the cream of the crop, the knowledge of your society, the age, right? I think Africa knows that better than and probably the Western societies. And I'm putting, even though Caribbean is in the global South, that's a Western philosophy, right? Actually, in Trinidad, 60 years old, which is insane. But in Antigua, you have to retire, and at most of UE campuses, you have to retire at 65. So I retired, but I had to remind my daughter this morning, I didn't stop working, right? So I have continued working on this concept, and it has been one of the most incredible, besides the project you've seen on the screen, this platform has been one of the most gratifying piece of work that I have ever done because I know it's going to impact lives, right? You're looking at the screen right now of something created at Howard and improved at MIT. If you look at the top, it's the cylindrical forms. Those are aquaculture, and the idea is the egg that you see in the center. The egg shape is where you buy eggs, and you take it to a hatchery, and then you take it to the tree fish pond. And those are huge, right? Those little things you see like pearls, They are 6 meters in diameter. So this is a huge facility looking at. These are the Himawari system that pipes sunlight via fiber optics. And within each sphere is a micropulse computer that tracks the sun wherever you go. Himawari is English to sunflower. So the sunflower tracks the sun and pipes sunlight into fiber optics. This is a total system that's natural. At the bottom is algae. Algae will grow forever if it have the fish waste and if it have the light. And algae produce the oxygen. And then in the center is the research facility, and then the hydroponics is at the back. When I did this at MIT, and when I introduced this at Howard, I remember coming back to the School of Architecture, and I was showing photographs from the pavilion in Japan, and I remember my colleagues laughing at me, asking the question, what does tomatoes have to do with architecture? And I, in my naive mind, then thought that was a stupid question because you grow tomatoes outside, which is an environment, and you grow it in a controlled environment, which you have the controlled environment, and we operate in a controlled environment. But I have to tell you, I don't know where the people who laughed are or what they have done with their lives. I know that I embraced the curiosity of research from that day and this project, and I'll flip on in a little bit while I talk. So this is the solution at land. I'll show you the solution at sea. And the whole premise of the solution at sea is that you have, just like oil rigs that you all have so much of if we could have oil rigs floating on the sea, why can't we grow food on the sea? And actually, that was the solution for Japan, because Japan, most of the land, fertile land, is taken up by overpopulation. So the only other place you have to grow food is at sea, floating. But the idea here is that this research that was done in 1988 never stopped. I have continued working on artificial intelligence with this project that has taken it to a different level. So again, you don't have to really stop where you are. You just have to continue working, and you just have to continue improving. And the technologies are going to change. And the reason why I wanted to answer a question like this is because it's AI right now. It might be another technology in 5 years. But unless you have the ability to conceptualize what is in that head and passing off to a technician, you're going to be stuck in a technology that was. Right? Just like how you may be stuck in 1.0, 2.0, and knowing that you have to get to 3.0. Don't be stuck by the technology. At MIT, we had this saying that says use appropriate technology to solve a problem. The people who could solve a problem are the people who are successful. I've always said that WhatsApp is a stupid application. It is. It doesn't take much programming, but it solves a mighty problem for us. If I had WhatsApp when I was at Howard, I would have saved thousands and thousands of dollars as a young student at Howard, missing home, calling Trinidad. AT&T got all my money. Now people save money. Now they have conversation. It solved a problem. So it was somebody's head passed on to some programmers, and a solved problem. Know how to solve problems because the technology is going to change. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much indeed. Because, like you said, the most successful people are the people who can solve problems. So it's really about the problem solving. So we do have some questions in the chat, but please, if you still have more questions, we have Dr. Charles for this period to answer your questions as extensively as possible. So by all means, put your questions in the chat. So this is one question now. Looking ahead, and I'm reading it, looking ahead over the next 2 to 3 years, what do you think will separate businesses that genuinely benefit from AI from those that simply experiment with it?
To be quite frank, nothing. If you're only looking at the next 2 or 3 years, nothing. We are way beyond the next 2 or 3 years. When I was at Microsoft, we had a research project that was looking at universities and thinking about the fact that students who were in high school, right? The students who were in grade school projected to be high school. When they reach high school, there would be professions that has never been thought about. That's where you need to be. We didn't have data science 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, but we have data science now. Why do we have data science? Not because it's a new field. We always had large amounts of data, and we couldn't do anything with the data. The price of computing has dropped, And as the price of computing has dropped, you now have more computing power cheaply. So that you now, all that data that you used to collect, and it always annoys me when I hear people say we don't have enough data. We have always collected data. We have, as a society, it might have been, whether it's in from a colloquial perspective, whether it's from a village perspective, whether it's our ancestors have always we have always been people around stories. So that data has always been around, and in the stories you're going to find the data. So we have data. So somebody say, okay, well, let's data science. So I always have the argument with my computer science colleagues who tell me that data science is a child of computer science. I don't want to abandon my parent. But nobody's running out to hire computer scientists. They're hiring data scientists. So if you're thinking about the next few years, and that's unfortunate where computer science hasn't moved. It's unfortunate. It's a very egotistical group of people. Some of them, let me just say some that I have encountered, but you have to understand that the field is evolving. And don't be stuck there and say, well, you had all these children and grandchildren, but you're aging. And you're going to be aged out. So don't be like computer science and be aged out. What you need to be is to be thinking about what the next, if I am, okay, I turned 66 in June, right? I'm not concerned about the next 40 years, right? But you should be, right? If you're 30 something, you should be thinking about, well, what problems you think is going to be evolving in the next 40 years that we don't have tools for, that I could get ahead of the curve. And if I get ahead of the curve, then there's a whole new sector. And I'll give you an example. Listen, Africa is one of the best places to be on the face of the earth in the next 60 years. If you are not in Africa, Africa is the best place to start developing a company if you're not there. Because 60% of your population is under 23 years old. You put on your entrepreneurship hat and you say, that's a growth market. There's no society that's growing like that. By the end of this century, Africa is like 9% of the population, right? The world population. Africa is going to be like 30% of the world population by then. You should not be thinking about the next 5 years or the next 10 years. You should be thinking about developing a generational company that if you outlive, your children and your grandchildren could develop and be benefactors of that society that's growing. That's true. It's if you were in Nigeria and you're thinking about what business I would go into, and you think in the next 2 or 3 years, and you're not thinking that this population is growing at a speed that's going to put me in the driver's seat if I stay focused on solutions. And you're talking about insurance that these young people are going to have. You're talking about education. I mean, Doc, you're in the right place for this education. You just need to evolve, right? Because we know that students are impatient. They don't want to sit down in a classroom anymore. But still, we still sit down at the universities and we lecture for them for 2 hours. And we know that researchers told us that they turn off after 5 minutes. But we just felt that, we have a PhD, so we had to be egotistical. We're going to talk to them for 2 hours because the class said 2 hours. What different type of learning modalities we should have for this population that's growing? What different type of work? Because we know these kids, they're not interested in 9 to 5. What type of remote work? I mean, could they be in Cancun and working? Do you care whether they're in Cancun and working? Right? I mean, so you have which is the name of my design then, a cornucopia. You have a cornucopia of opportunities that you should be thinking about where the continent is considered. But you can't be thinking next 2 or 3 years. I mean, you next 2 or 3 years, you already dead. I mean, you got to be thinking beyond that. So if you're thinking beyond that, then you have to think about what type of business based on the career that I'm in right now or the discipline that I'm in. How do I use technology? Now it's AI, but how do I evolve beyond AI 3.0? So you should be thinking about AI 5.0. That's what you should be thinking about. And if we have a board meeting, I'm in the board meeting, I'm going to say that if we're teaching anything in 1.0 or 2.0, we need to scrap that immediately. We need to be taking our society beyond where the norm is. And that's not saying that you're not going to have people who want 1.0 or 2.0, but people, as an educator, I would tell you, students rise to the height that you put them to. If it's down here, they're going to rise to down here. So if we say that our society is going to need 3.0 skills, and that's what they're going to get. They're going to get the foundational skills. But we need to be. I love Gretzky. If you like hockey, ice hockey, I'm not an ice hockey fan. I just think it's foolish. But I love Wayne Gretzky. I always did because he was greatest at the sport. But Wayne Gretzky always says, never be where the puck is. Be where the puck is going. And the puck is that little thing they hit. So if you want to be an entrepreneur that's successful, you had to be where the puck is going. How do you know where the puck is going? I'm glad you asked. You know the product is going, you do the research, you continue learning, you continue absorbing information, you continue going to conferences. I mean, when we went to the conference in Geneva, when we met, nobody paid our passage. I mean, you go to, it's happening right now. I mean, like I told Doc, I'm not really going because if they want me as a speaker, they're going to have to pay for me to be a speaker, right? Because as a business, which is another nugget I want to leave with you, as an entrepreneur, don't go to conferences where they invite you to speak unless you get in business. Or don't go to a conference that doesn't have some attachment to the development of your business. Don't go to a conference just to learn. Identify who's going to go to the conference, who you could meet, who you could expand your knowledge with, so that when you come back, you're not just leaving with, well, I went to a great conference in Geneva. No. Doc went to a great conference in Geneva. She met Dr. Charles. We continued networking. Dr. Charles sat on the board, and here we are today. So you have to look before who are the personalities that are going to be there. Don't take these things to chance. We have the data, we have the tools. You have to be always anticipatory. Leave here today with an anticipatory mindset so that you're never thinking about today, you're never thinking about next week, never thinking about next month. You're thinking, your strategic planning should be years ahead. A decade from now, what do I want this business to be? How competitive I want to be? There was a statistic that shows that in the next 2 years, we're going to have one person firm trillionaires. I believe that you could be one of those people. Because the reality is the technology is so advanced that by networking beyond, you don't need to be in a physical building with 200 people working for you. Nothing against the employees, Doc. But you don't have to be in a building with 200 people working for you. We have to be able to be like that as entrepreneurs. I hope that helps.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, when I was surprised when you said nothing at first would separate them until you got to the crux of the matter, where you mentioned that it's really the problems that are being solved that matter more than the tools that are being used. So always be anticipatory. I hope we are all.
I'm sorry. They solve a great problem. Look, for young,
Yeah.
I think about me and my brothers when we were in college and how much money we spend calling home. For these young kids, students who are in college right now, or international students, we miss home. People don't know at 17 years old, at 17 or 18 years old in a foreign country, it's tough. So what we do, we call home. We could do that now free of charge. You give up your security for it, but at least it's cheaper. But the tool itself, the technology itself, it's not that really advanced, but it solves a problem. And they didn't solve a problem. They solve a problem today that they could probably have like a 5-year span. But I could tell you within the next 5 years, we're probably not going to need WhatsApp. There's probably going to be something else. And that should be your opportunity as an entrepreneur. If you're in electrical engineering, you should be thinking, okay, what's WhatsApp 10.0 that could be coming from Nigeria? That's what you need to be thinking about.
Yeah, always be anticipatory. Okay, so we have two more questions in the chat. So I'll take the first one here, and I think it's a very interesting one. So it says, as businesses become more AI enabled, what should entrepreneurs be careful not to automate or hand over completely to AI?
Yeah, great question. And I it's funny. I shared this with my brothers yesterday. So we grew up with a colleague of ours, and so he sent me this 20 minutes, a 20 minutes podcast that smashed AI. Talk about AI is going to make us stupid, and it's going to it's the death of humanity, right? And I took a day to answer him, because if I'd answered him right away, we probably wouldn't be friends today, because I had given him an example of when I drive to work, if I need to draft a letter, I would talk to ChatGPT, right? And by the time I reach to work, I draft my letter or I have my presentation. So he basically told me that was plagiarism. I mean, that was enough for me to fire off a response yesterday to him, because it's a complete lack of understanding. So the first thing I'll tell you is don't argue with stupidity. Don't. Right? Just don't. As an entrepreneur, you have to know when to fold. You have to know where to spend your energy. Again, I'm a fan of listening to things. On yesterday, there was this guy on Shark Tank. I can't remember his name, but he's talking about Steve Jobs, and he was saying Steve Jobs was a nasty person. He would cuss, and he said you'd go to him and he'd tell him, he said, man, listen, I don't care what you're doing today. You are working for the best company as an OEM, which was he was doing the education programs for Apple. He said, but I love Steve Jobs, because Steve Jobs knew that in a day, there are only so many hours. And there are only so many metrics I could use to measure the success of what I have to do today. So I do not want to distract myself with things that are not necessarily going to achieve the goal. So Steve Jobs, we talk about this 80-20, but Steve 80-20 was 80% has to focus on what is absolutely necessary. And the other 20% has to be my 20%, not your 20%. So I had to be distracted myself. I don't want you to distract myself. When you think about that, when you think about yourself, a day in the life of your entrepreneurship growth, right? You cannot be distracted from emails, from telephone calls, from the news media. I don't listen to the news when I'm working. I don't listen to the news, period. I may look at CNN ever so often and read the news. Because if I am working and I stop to answer the phone, it takes me off track. I can't multitask. They say women can multitask. I'm bad at that. So I have to stay focused like Steve Jobs. And when I stay focused, that's when I'm successful. So you have to master being focused and know how not to get distracted as an entrepreneur. Because as an entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur of one. And you're trying to do, like we showed in the film, you're trying to do the job of 500 people. The only thing that can help you with that is the technology we showed. But you have to be relentlessly focused. And not everybody's going to like that. That's okay. You know what? They're going to get over it. But you have to have the vision. Remember, God didn't give everybody the vision. He gave you the vision. So you stopping to explain to someone why you're staying focused and they being upset because you probably didn't answer a call or you probably didn't send back an email. That's irrelevant to where God is taking you. You had to stay focused. And as long as you stay focused as an entrepreneur, I think you're going to be worldly successful like Steve Jobs. I'm an Apple fanatic. I don't own an Apple computer, but I own everything else Apple. But I used to be an Apple evangelist because I just thought that the mind of a man who could think about that product was absolutely extraordinary. And look at it, Steve Jobs wasn't making the computers. That's why I say you have to have the conceptual mind. Steve Jobs had technicians who were making the computer and doing the programming. And that's what is priceless. What is inside here is what is priceless. I don't care if it's AI or if it's something else. That's what is inside here. Know how to bring that out to people who work for you.
Amazing. So we now have even more questions within the chat. Thank you for that very extensive answer. I mean, all your answers are they just hit, they always go off what I think would be the answer, but you always just find a way to give me something new. So I'm going to beg us to all stay as engaged as we've been staying, because I mean, all that Dr. Charles is sharing is very, very informative, is highly engaging. Like I'm just having a lot of thoughts running through my head as I listen to him. So I'm just going to go quickly to the next question. So Omoyeni is asking, if you are starting a business today with AI available from day one, what would you do differently from how businesses were traditionally built?
Yeah, I think if you start a business from today, you and how businesses are traditionally built, I think you have a different mindset, right? So the norm before AI became prevalent is that in order to start a company, you need to get venture capitalists, right? Because venture capitalists, you give them a percentage of your business, and if it's a great idea, they invest in the business and then they work you like a mule until they get the investment, because that's the whole point of being invested in a company. You want to get back your returns. So I think it has changed the viewpoint of young entrepreneurs, because young entrepreneurs know now that I could use AI to build a prototype and I could disperse that widely on LinkedIn or on a large whatever communities I am in on LinkedIn, or even in our group iFord has like 5,000 members. I could distribute that among my members and get feedback, and I could go to market probably not as quickly as with a venture capitalist, but I don't give up 60% of my company. So it gives us more independence as entrepreneurs. We were solely dependent on a venture capitalist model. That no longer is. And I think that's one of the things I would think about in starting a company. If I want to go public, if I want a company to be successful. Now, there's a trap I don't want you to fall into, because I fell into that trap as an early entrepreneur. I was I just come out of MIT and I had my first business. I decided to call it MIT as a Multimedia Interactive Technologies. I figured if I say MIT Inc., it will associate me with my university I went to. And it did. It worked. It worked really well. And I had this mentor, and he said, Curtis, why did you start the business? I said, when I started a business because, I want to have a business. I mean, it's like a good thing to have a business. I put in all the sweat equity and I built this business. And what came out of his mouth, I wasn't prepared for. Say, man, that's foolishness. What is sweat equity? He said, you build a business to sell it. That hit me between my eyes that I just didn't. It's like, I wanted to fight. I had fighting words then. I mean, what? You build this thing, this is like my baby. You tell me to sell my child? No. So you build a business to sell it, and you build another business and you sell it, and you build a business and you sell it. The fact that you're in sweat equity and you telling me that you work 18 hours a day tells me that you don't have a business. You have a prison. He said you build a business to have more life. That's why you build a business. So don't fall into that trap that we did. Learn from our mistakes. I mean, we thought that when we built a business, we did all that stuff. But this guy, I telling you, I was younger than 40 years old when I learned that lesson, and he was probably like close to 80. So he had gone through this whole time. He had a very successful Canon printer. He used to sell Canon. He was a Canon printing. Aging myself, you probably don't know what's a Canon printer. He was a Canon printer dealer back in the day, but he was very successful in Miami. He said, Curtis, you build a business to sell it. And that guy at that point in time, I was less than 40, he was offering me 250,000, which was a lot of money then. I refused it. I refused it. Because with my baby. I said, man, I can't sell you my baby. Now, his point was, you could have sold that. Use what is here that no one could take. Develop another similar business and sell it, or keep it if you want. But you are now 250,000. And I'll never forget it. I was talking to my brother Neville on the call. And Neville is a mathematician. He's an actuary. Actuaries use data to calculate how many people are going to die by car accidents. The most fundamental math lesson I learned, 0 by 0 is 0. 0 by 0 is 0. But 250,000 by 1 is 250,000. I walked away with 0, where I could have sold that business on the spot for 250,000. So don't make those mistakes. Don't make the mistake that this is sweat equity. There's nothing like sweat equity. Whatever the time you spend on a business, you should be counting that time. You should be booking that time. Yeah, if I don't know how many accountants there are on the call, but I know when I was a university president, those type of time, there's a ledger to book that time that comes off the books at some point in time. So book your time. Make sure that your time is precious. Don't everybody wants you to do something and say come and do it. No, you don't. You have to be conscious of your time, and you have to make sure that if that business doesn't give you more time, then you don't want to do it. Like I have reached a point in my life, right, where I want to, and we're building this company, right? But I could tell you right now, I don't want to work hard. I work hard the rest of my whole life. I want to build something that continues to make money. Windows is probably the best example I could give you. Listen, man, I'm not Bill Gates fan. I used to work for Microsoft. I think Microsoft is one of the best companies on the face of the earth. But Bill Gates and them, when they took the operating system when they bought, let me say they bought the operating, because this is public. When they bought the operating system or they borrowed the operating system from Apple, Windows was the best example of build it once and it pays for itself in perpetuity. If I could give you an entrepreneurship idea, I would tell you build it once and let it pay for itself. Every year you have an upgrade. Listen, every year people pay for the upgrade of Windows, whatever, 10 or 10, next say 11 or 12, every year. Build it once. Build it once. So what product or service is there out there that AI could enable you, that you build it once and have continuous customers? In the morning, like we showed on the video, you get up and it says, "Dear Dr. Charles, these are how many customers you have. These are the ones you're losing. These are the ones that we need to take care of." You close your iPad, you go back on the beach. Build it once and continue. Don't be a slave to your business. If you're a slave to your business, you are a slave. That's it, pure and simple. So any business, whether it's in the training, Doc, you shouldn't be leaving that office at 8 o'clock in the night. You just shouldn't. I mean, that's crazy. And the business shouldn't depend on you to run. We're talking about AI technology. That's the premise of this discussion. Your business should be automated in such a way that it doesn't depend on you. If your business depends on you, you're in the wrong business. I don't want to be part of any business that depends on me. I don't. You always need to be thinking as a business, as a young entrepreneur, regardless if you're making zero right now, what's my succession plan? Because the saddest thing would be for you to have spent all this time developing this intellectual property and you die without the fulfillment of it. If you die without the fulfillment of it, you should have had a succession plan written down that it could continue, that your idea wouldn't die with you. Sorry?
Mubarak, can you please mute?
Yeah, someone is.
Please, one of the co-hosts should help us.
Yeah. So I think those are some nuggets for if you're a young entrepreneur. One, the business is supposed to give you more life. Two, have a succession plan. Don't let your intellectual property die with you. Somebody's going to take it on. Have a plan as to who's going to take it on. But your ideas should continue to live. And as I talk about intellectual property, patent the intellectual property. Don't have something out there that you didn't patent. We have probably like 10 patents. Patent. You could have in the US, you could have a provisional patent, which is 12 months. And then within that 12 months, you have to go for a full patent. So the provisional patent is about $165. And then it's like $500 to like a couple of $1,000, depending on the complexity of the patents. How many times you go to conferences and you hear speakers who have 100 patents? You could tie your shoes and patent that, right? Whatever is up here, patent it. Whatever's up there. Because the saddest thing is to see Joe or Mary with that idea that was up there that you didn't patent and making money from it. So
Amazing. As that's so intense and thought provoking. I mean, build it once and let it pay for itself. That one is ringing in my ears. So moving on, I'm going to kindly request everyone's indulgence to take these last two questions. So we have two questions.
Can I add one thing? One to that? I'm sorry.
Okay.
The next time you put on a Jordans, think about that. The next time you put on the sneakers designed by Michael Jordan, think about that. Michael Jordan designed, with the help of the designer, one sneakers. And every time somebody purchases a Michael Jordan, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. Find the Michael Jordan sneakers using AI example, and you would have not left this. The time you spent with us today would have been well worth it.
Definitely.
I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Okay, so a question from Ruth, and then we'll take a last question from Kosi Sochuko. So Ruth's question: most AI solutions can easily be duplicated. How can we avoid this when we are trying to create a solution, not just for our businesses, but also something that may solve a global problem?
Yeah, great question. Because like when you go, I'll give you the academic answer, right? So in the academy, faculty are always told, be careful when you go to conferences, right? So which is a catch-22, because faculty bread and butter is publish or perish, right? The only way you get promoted is if you publish and you perish. If you publish and you get grants and contracts, that's the only way. So faculty is always looking at publishing, right? So faculty seldom have a business hat on, right? But I could tell you, after being a faculty, after going through the entire ranks and being a university president, that the majority of faculty ideas die on a shelf gathered with dust, right? Because faculty want to get the grant, and most grants are 3 years, right? So after the 3 years, they're looking for the next promotion, and that's on a shelf. And the ideas that were developed in those 3 years could have been patented as intellectual property if they also had on a promotion and a business hat. But they're not trained like that. Remember, faculty, most PhDs, you train to study the tip of that pen, right? Right? I mean, if you think about it, right? You have one aspect of a domain in biology, because you're not studying all of biology. You're studying some element in biology, otherwise you'll never finish a PhD research. So there's a small fraction that you choose to study, which is like the point of that pen, in the whole hemisphere of biology. And you focus for 6 or 7 years on developing the research on that. No professor is telling you, unless there's a business-minded professor, that you should be thinking about patenting that technology. What that professor is telling you is, Curtis, continue doing research, because that could complement to my promotion. So they put your name at the end of their research and you become a contributor. So the student who's getting so you understand what I'm trying to show is that from the training as a PhD student into faculty, the business hat never comes on. So what you should be thinking of as an entrepreneur is to be the opposite of what a faculty is. Be the person developing ideas, and as you develop patent. You don't have to patent the whole idea when it comes out. But as you get a good idea, you patent it. And that's how you protect yourself. So that when you go global, you have all these ideas. Before you publish it, you have all these ideas. You publish it. Right? So that's how you protect yourself. And that's how you remain competitive.
Yeah, I think that's definitely answers the question very it answers it completely. Thank you very much.
If I may add to that, because there's another barrier to that, because excuse me, there are patent attorneys, right? There are attorneys that just practice this law. And a barrier to entrepreneurs has always been the expense of it, right? Which is a myth, right? So I'm trying to give you some ideas of some things that you could do. You could walk through the process, a little bit painful, but you will learn it. And you could go to your own provisional patent. You may need an attorney when you want to do the full patent. By that time, you would have made some money. that will give you enough money to, but don't get an attorney to do the initial thing. You could do that yourself. But so the way the technology is advanced, you could basically, I mean, the way I did it, I could quite frankly, first pattern I did is that I went to the patent website and there's a form to fill out, and I cut and paste the form and then put the form in Google, and Google tells me the answer based on my technology, my thing. So I don't have to have an attorney there. Now, is it legally proof? I know it's not legally proof, but it gives me 12 months protection so that I could do due diligence within the next 12 months and make sure that it's solid. But protect your ideas.
Yes, definitely. We do need to protect our ideas, and thank you for the nuggets that you've given us on how to do that. Patenting it is definitely one way. Okay, so moving on to our final question for the evening. How can AI create a durable competitive advantage in an industry, for example, tech and energy industry, rather than just a temporary efficiency gain? So that question is from Kosi Sochuku.
Yeah, so look, I think especially I mean, based on my introduction, you would know that based on my colleagues I went to school with and the people I know, I have full respect for Nigeria. I think the natural resources actually, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but one of your former ministers of I knew she wasn't that popular, but one of your former ministers of energy was my classmate in architecture at Howard. I think it's Adioli something. I can't remember her last name, but she looked back to see how many ministers of energy you had. Again, I knew it wasn't popular, but I wanted to say that story because she and I ran for election one year at School of Architecture, and I think we lost 200 to 2. The only 2 votes for her and myself was her and myself vote. Because we had a real popular 2 other people running for her. So I knew her really, really well. And I knew she was one of the energy ministers. But I say that to say that you could be an energy minister and have done architecture, right? Don't be confined by what you study in college, right? What you study in college is a stepping stone to get you there. I think the fact that you are a nation and especially a large parts of the continent, I just think that we haven't leveraged our resources enough, right? So I think that there's a huge opportunity, just I think with the young people, there's a huge opportunity for natural gas. There's a huge opportunity for engineering. There's a huge opportunity for the underserved, and I'm putting underserved in because we haven't served it, as you know what I'm saying. We haven't taken that. We haven't been the people of the driving force. But that population needs to be educated and prepared so that we could leverage this. And it's beginning to happen in parts of the continent. There's some parts of the continent where new and young leaders are saying, okay, this is our natural resources, and we need to train our people to make sure that we benefit from it and we help our people from it. So I think from a technology perspective and from natural gas and petroleum and stuff, I think there's a huge opportunity for AI. And I think even in some of the companies that you see in Texas, they're using AI significantly to do the same thing as you would do as an entrepreneur, to figure out what are the convergent forces, right? As I talk about in terms of anticipatory, who are your competitors? How could I get ahead of my competitor? But I think, Nigeria is so rich in some of these resources that you talk about in your question that to me, it's an area where we need to really leverage. And I want to leave you with this because I don't know how many people on the call and who are younger. But I think one of the things that we need to do it in the diaspora, definitely. But in Nigeria and in different parts of the continent, when we get, and I hope there's some young politicians on the call, but when we get into power, we need to make it attractive for our students who we paid for to go abroad to study to come back home. We need to make it. I mean, not everybody's going to do like that. I mean, I spent 5 years in the Caribbean at Five Island campus, and I have to tell you, that was my dream. My dream was always to give back to the Caribbean, but it always isn't in a package like I received. I have to tell you, if somebody had told me it was the University of West Indies, I would tell them go fly a kite. And the reason I would have said that is the University of West Indies, when we were growing up, my brothers and myself, were for bourgeois blacks. Right? You had to be in the top 1% bourgeoisie of the Caribbean. We were poor. So the people who go to University of West Indies before our campus would always succeed because University of West Indies only accepted people with A levels. Listen, if you have A levels, you could be successful anywhere in the world because of the rigor of A levels that you do. What our university did was made it mandatory that we accept students at O levels because the students at O levels, they're poor. 9 or 10 of them, the first generation college student. They have no aspiration, nobody in the house who could tell them what a college is all about. And they are the ones who are going to change the nation because they're the ones that's going to stay there. Right. So if you can make it attractive for us to come back as politicians, and you don't have to be politicians, you might be influential on a board that you serve that says, look, we think that this is a mandate that we need to have because we always, whether you're in the diaspora, wherever you're in the diaspora, we are brain drained. And we need to solve that problem if Africa and most of the continent is going to move and push that 60% young folks who are under 21 to be leaders in the diaspora. That's one of the things I think that AI could help us a lot with. And we who know how to use AI could empower those governments. I think one of the questions I was hoping that somebody asked, but I'm just going to end with this, and I sound like sound like a preacher. The preacher always says, well, this is my last word, I'm going to end with this. But I'm really ending here. But I think one of the ways that we could help, and Doc, I'm going to challenge you as well and your colleagues. We need to help our governments. And it may not be for payment, but most of our governments, look at them. They're our grandparents, who are a little older than me. They may be resistant to the technology that the young people want, but the systems that we have in place in the diaspora are so arcane that we who know the technology could say, okay, let's just have a pizza lunch and we're going to come in and show you how to use ChatGPT. And what you did is that you begin to sensitize. When I reached 5 Islands it was 2020, the heights of COVID. And I had to brief the cabinet, which I have done for my time twice a year. So twice a year, I'm briefing the cabinet on how the university is doing with AI. That was deposits in their emotional bank. The first time I was like, man, these guys, they're not going to understand. But remember, it was the height of COVID, the beginning of COVID. Our country that depended only on tourism, mostly on tourism. So they knew that there needed to be a change. So the message was right. I almost got a standing ovation. Not because of me, because of the message of change. And I think that's what we could do. That's what you could do. That's what the colleagues who on this call could do. Look at our governments in the diaspora. And you might write a newspaper article that might pique the interest. But don't sit back and know that the systems that they have in place are arcane and you have the AI technology and you don't share the knowledge. I think that's a criminal thing for us to do as young people who have the knowledge. Well, I'm talking to you guys. I mean, you guys need to do that. I did my part when I was in Antigua, and I still continue engaging the Caribbean governments, and I'm still in the global South. I'm still eager to go to wherever the ends are in global South and work with governments to make sure that we use that as what the military calls a force multiplier. We need to use AI as a force multiplier, and we need to creolize AI for us. Because we can't take AI that's in the US or AI that's in Britain or AI that's somewhere else and say we want to improve our societies. The word back in colonial days. What we need to do is to take that term and creolize it. When we were planning the School of Science, Computing, and Artificial Intelligence, I don't know if you're familiar with what is called the United Negro College Fund, but we had a group of guys who was helping us think about the school. One of the guys at the United Negro College Fund said, Curtis, this is such a brilliant idea that we need to take this idea to reverse the slave triangle. And I was just like, wow. So, man, how can we take this from the US to the Caribbean to Africa and back? If this discussion could ignite that in somebody on this call and see that as a vision, you're talking about a vision, not 2 or 3 years, but you're talking about 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And we could take what was meant for evil and use it for good. And I'll leave you with that Bible scripture. What the enemy meant for evil, we could turn it around and use it for good.
Hallelujah, because at this time, that's just a perfect, I think that's just the perfect word because, I mean, this has been such a, let us just completely cover this place with emojis. Like, I almost feel like I am just going to give a physical clap as well because this has been, I came into this session expecting something, and I can say this has gone above and beyond all my expectations. Like it's fantastic the way you started your story, sharing your story, the presentation that you gave, rather the video that you gave, the answers to the questions, everything has just been short of, it's just beyond, it has been priceless. I think someone on the group said priceless. I am going to borrow that word. This is priceless, and I really really thank you. I mean, I am thankful and I am grateful. The way, how should I put it, this is the first webinar that I've been on where I could tell that everyone was engaged. I can't see everybody's faces, but I could just tell that no, everyone was listening. And we've gone a bit over time, but I also do not even want to break the I do not want to interrupt or break it because I just really wanted you to give out everything that you came here to share. Everyone can really tell the intentionality, the drive, the passion, the value that you came here and you said that you're going to put out. So really, thank you so much. I mean, everything we've learned today is so timely because as young people, especially in the global south where we are, we are at a really we're at a very important time where we are actively building the tools, we're building the solutions, we're building the systems that the future will know us for and will also thank us for that. And honestly, this has been so amazing. Like I'm really short of words for how wonderful it has been. And one thing I just want to add to tie it back to BAFAI is one way to formalize all that we've learned here or even get structured learning is really to go on our website BAFAI.ai and see some of the courses that we have. At the moment we have 7 courses. The AI fundamentals for people that are just really getting into AI, they want to understand what it's about. Task management for people that want to learn how to organize tasks, learn how to organize and prioritize the tasks. Workflow automation, learn how to identify repetitive processes. So I think a lot of the things that Dr. Charles has mentioned falls under that workflow automation part where you identify the solution, the vision that you want to bring out, and then see the places where you can save your time. There's also agentic AI, there's AI ethics, AI research, and data annotation. Everything you can find on our website, bafai.ai. So it has really been an amazing time, and this is definitely recorded and it will be shared on our social. So again, this is a great time for you to go on our social platforms to follow us so that you'll be notified when this recording is shared. Because for me, I know I am going to listen to this over and over again and take some more notes because this is almost like it's almost like a lecture. It's definitely a lecture. All right, I think the time is really fast spent, so I'm going to call upon our host by the way of Dr. Lola to give us our vote of thanks before we close out. But I really want to say thank you again, Dr. Charles. I'm really completely grateful for all that you've shared with us today. It has been very, very engaging, very amazing, very wonderful. I can go on with the adjectives, but let me give Dr. Lola the opportunity
And
to give us our vote of thanks.
before Dr. O comes on, just one thing for your colleagues who are on, you need to let folks know that if this talk is something that they feel benefits them, only at BAFA AI they could get talks like this. You understand what I'm saying? So your value is not only in the courses you study, your value is the type of speakers that you bring in as well. So that is something that is not, don't take this lightly that, well, we just have a speaker. No, this is part of the package that you have built in terms of the education that you offer. That's a thought.
Thank you so much, Dr. Curtis Charles. Thank you very much. I'm completely blown away by just the excellence of this webinar. I think it's the best we've had so far. I mean, even with all the comments coming in, you can tell that this was so wholesome and it was a perfectly, I mean, this is just a very nice way to wrap up the week and enter the weekend, right? It's so late, it's just deeply laden with a lot of wisdom. One of the comments said it has so much wisdom beyond the AI for entrepreneurs we came for. Right. And I couldn't agree any more than like it is just amazing. So first and foremost, our deepest gratitude goes to you, Dr. Curtis Charles, for being here. And we want to thank you for sharing your valuable time, your expertise, your profound insights on this topic, AI for entrepreneurs, and you know how we need to work smarter, not harder. And the practical examples you gave have been very insightful. They've been so apt and extremely relatable. You know, want to thank you so much. And I think it's the first time ever also that I'm on a webinar and I'm seeing support from families. So, you know, so real. Like I was just scrolling to see all the child surnames and I think I counted 3. I think let's just give a round of applause to Dr. Ray Charles for being here. Dr. I think Mr. Neville, I didn't see, and then also I saw a lady, Terry. I don't know if she's also part of the family. Thank you so much for being here, you know, to just be here, support Dr. Charles, and really just what we're doing at BAFAI. We really appreciate your presence. I mean, for me, I was just like, wow, this is what family is about. And it's really so beautiful to see. And it's such a great thing to model, you know. So I think when next I'm going in for a webinar, I'll call all my family members to show up as well, because it's just so beautiful to see. Thank you so much for the Charles family for being here as well. I want to thank the organizers, my team at BAFAI, you know, want to thank all those who also just took out time. I know some people joined earlier and had to leave. You know, I saw some names from the USA. I suppose it's also maybe some of the communities you belong in, Dr. Charles, that joined, or maybe they saw our posts. You know, maybe one of the posts that we made. I want to thank everyone for being here. I want to thank the audience. We have a lot of learners also, current learners from BAFAI who are here as well. I see some people from my class because I take the AI ethics class. You can see them with their emojis. I see some also, you know, from the data annotation, agentic AI, you know, workflow automation. So you can see them representing their different cohorts. So we want to thank everyone for being here. This one is one Zoom link that would go very popular in-house, because those who have missed this session will be very sorry. And I know we won't let them hear the last of it. So thank you so much again. And we're really looking forward. And indeed, Dr. Charles, we're really so proud of you. I call you honorable because you know, you always dress honorably and you always speak honorably. And indeed, you're an honorable to us. So thank you so much. And
Just want everybody to know that I call you Queen of the Global South. So honorable.
Thank you so much again. And we
Appreciate it.
really thank you. And we hope that, you know, there would be other opportunities as well to call on you. And I dare say the entire Charles family to keep supporting BAFAI. Thank you again.
Thanks,
Over
everyone.
to you, Winifred.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So with that, I can definitely say we have definitely had a very amazing time together listening to Dr. Charles, gleaning from his wealth of wisdom. So with that, again, I echo Dr. Lan, I echo everyone else's sentiments, I believe, and say a very big thank you. Thank you so much. We are indeed grateful. We are so grateful. So please, if you can give one more emoji before we close out completely and we can declare this meeting closed. Let's all thank him again with our emojis. So cover the whole screen.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yes.
God bless
Okay.
everyone.
So right now we can then all
That's
we can
our
then,
own standing ovation. The webinar standing
yes,
ovation is emojis.
yes, indeed. It is emojis that we cannot give enough. We definitely cannot give enough. So thank you
Thank
all
you.
for taking the time, for being such gracious participants. Everyone that stayed, everyone that also couldn't stay till the end, we still thank you as well. People that are watching later on, we are grateful for the views as well. So thank you to everyone. And with that, I can then declare this webinar officially closed. Thank you.
Take care. Good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.